Welcome to the Deep Dive. Our mission, as always, is filtering out the noise to bring you the insights you really need. And today, we're really digging into some heavy hitters in education. McTighe and Harvey F. Silver, we're looking at their work on, well, teaching for deeper learning. They start with a problem I think we've all bumped into, right? Whether you're a student, maybe a parent, or just trying to learn something new and complex, learning often just stops. It stays really superficial. You study, you take the test, and then poof, it's gone. They have a term for it, inert knowledge. Information you technically acquired, you pass the test, but then it just vanishes. Sinks like a stone because you never truly got it.
And look, that kind of knowledge, that inert stuff, it's actually pretty dangerous today. It's not just about getting a bad grade anymore. The real cost is becoming irrelevant. I mean, the sources make this crystal clear. All the knowledge in the world is on the phone in nearly every student's pocket.
Right.
So success can't just be about recall. If all you can do is memorize facts, well, a machine does that way faster, doesn't it?
Okay, so that sets up our mission for you, the listener, today. We need to help frame the solution. It's about making a pretty fundamental shift. Moving away from being passive memorizers of information towards becoming active, strategic thinkers about content.
Exactly.
And the key, according to McTighe and Silver, is actively earning your understanding. They call this meaning making.
Meaning making, that's the whole game, really. Being able to thrive now depends on these higher order skills.
Yeah.
Skills like analyzing if information is even true, putting things in context, drawing solid conclusions, and then crucially, taking responsible action based on that. So that means we need to shift our focus in education towards getting enduring understanding of the really important big ideas. And this kind of understanding, this enduring stuff, it's not something you can just, pour into someone's head. It doesn't work like that. It absolutely has to be constructed in the mind of the learner. And that happens through actively messing with the content mentally, processing it.
Yeah.
That's meaning making.
Okay, that sounds like a huge shift in how teaching and learning actually happens. If you have to build understanding yourself, then the traditional role, the teacher or the guide, that has to change completely, right?
Yeah.
You can't just be the dispenser of information anymore, that old sage on the stage model.
That's right.
So the role becomes more of a facilitator of meaning making, the guide on the side we hear about.
Precisely. Yeah, the guide on the side. Your job is setting up the conditions, the environment for discovery, not just handing out facts.
So like giving the learner the lumber, the blueprints, the tools, and letting them actually build the structure themselves.
Exactly. But that building project, it only really works if the foundation, the content itself, is structured the right way. Which brings us to something essential, a prerequisite, the curriculum.
Yeah.
It needs to be deliberately organized around fewer, but conceptually bigger, transferable, big ideas. Because if we don't do that, if we don't prioritize, we just fall into that trap they mentioned. The mile-wide, inch-deep curriculum, covering hundreds of things superficially. And what happens? Students disengage. And crucially, the learning just doesn't stick. You can't see the forest for the trees.
Okay, but hang on. Is there a risk there? I mean, if everyone just focuses on these big abstract ideas like system or change or balance, don't we risk missing like the crucial facts, the foundational stuff you still need to know? How do you balance concept in detail?
Yeah, that's a really critical question.
Yeah.
And it gets to the heart of the difference between deep learning and just surface stuff.
Yeah.
It's absolutely not about ditching facts. Facts are the raw material, the building blocks.
Okay.
The big idea is the framework, the organizer. Think of facts like bricks, right?
Yeah.
The big idea is the architectural blueprint. You need the bricks, definitely, but without the blueprint, you just have a pile of bricks.
Yeah.
No structure.
I like that. A pile of bricks. Yeah. Okay. So how do you frame these big ideas so they actually help learners build that structure? McTighe and Silver point to a really powerful tool for this, using essential questions, or EQs.
Yes, EQ.
And what I like about these EQs is how they're inherently demanding. They're not simple recall questions. They're open-ended, designed specifically to make you think, to help you uncover the big ideas yourself, instead of just being given a definition.
Exactly. The question itself kind of is the instruction.
Right.
They're fantastic because they demand way more than just a factual answer.
Yeah.
Think about their examples. Instead of asking, what is historical fiction, which is just a recall, you ask something like, to what extent can fiction reveal truth?
Ooh, yeah. That's different.
Totally different. It forces you into this deep conceptual thought about narrative interpretation, truth itself. Or, instead of just describing climate zones, you ask, how does where we live influence how we live? That takes you way beyond just geography, right? Into sociology, economics, culture. And the beauty is these questions are instantly transferable. The core idea, influence, or truth applies everywhere.
Okay, that makes sense. So you've got the content structured around these big ideas, prompted by these really good questions. Now you need the engine, I guess, the thing that drives the learner towards actually getting that enduring understanding. And this is where we hit the real core of what makes students succeed. The 7 higher order thinking skills they identify.
Yes, this is the toolkit.
This really feels like the high achievers toolkit, doesn't it? These are the skills that help you acquire knowledge, not just for remembering it tomorrow, but for holding on to it, retrieving it easily, and this is key, transferring it to new situations.
Absolutely. And this list of 7, it's very deliberate. I mean, there are countless thinking skills out there, but they really zeroed in on these 7. Why? Because they see them as the absolute foundation for all complex reasoning. Doesn't matter if you're building an argument, doing science, designing something. These are the building blocks. So let's just quickly list them, and then we can talk about why they're so important. Okay, number 1, conceptualizing.
Right.
2, note-making and summarizing. 3 is comparing. 4, reading for understanding. 5, predicting and hypothesizing. 6, visualizing and using graphic representation. And number 7, perspective taking and empathizing.
That's a fascinating list. Why these specific 7, though? Like, why is conceptualizing number 1? What makes it so primary?
Well, it's because these skills, right, when you use them consistently, that's what separates the high achievers from the students who are struggling or just average. Successful students, they almost automatically bring these skills online when they face tough cognitive tasks. They don't just sit back and wait for the teacher to explain everything. They start processing right away.
Ah.
So take conceptualizing, number 1. That's the skill of looking at all these different bits of information, the facts, and seeing the patterns, the rules that connect them, finding the underlying principle behind the examples. That's why it's number 1. Without it, all the other facts are just isolated pieces floating around, no connection.
And what about number 7, perspective taking? That sounds a bit less academic, maybe more social emotional. Why is that critical for deep learning?
Well, perspective taking isn't just for, say, social studies. It's fundamental for critical evaluation in any field. Think about it. If you're reading a source, any source, you have to be able to consider the author's background, their potential bias, the context they were writing in. Otherwise, how do you judge if the claim is actually trustworthy?
Good point.
And if you're trying to solve a really complex problem, maybe in business, engineering, even history, you've got to understand all the different stakeholder viewpoints to come up with a solution that actually works and lasts. It's essential for making sound judgments.
Okay, so there's a clear dual benefit here. These 7 skills are the means to actively build meaning while you're learning something new. But they're also an end in themselves. Inherently valuable skills you can take with you and use throughout your life, your own personal engine for getting better at things.
Exactly. They become part of your cognitive toolkit.
All right, let's pivot then. Let's talk application. We pulled out 3 really practical tools from the sources, specific things you, the listener, can start using right away to kind of supercharge your own learning habits. Become that meaning maker. So nugget 1 zeroes in on this crucial difference between passively taking notes and actively making notes.
Yes.
We've all been note takers, right? I look back at my college notes, basically just copying stuff down verbatim. Result: spectacular inert knowledge. McTighe and Silver insist we need to be active note makers, creating, processing.
And the structure they suggest for this is really quite neat. Window notes. It's a simple 4-part framework, but it physically forces you to think beyond just writing down what was said.
How does it work?
You basically just divide your page into 4 quadrants, 4 boxes, and each box has a different job, engaging different parts of your thinking. So you capture the facts, that's one box. But then critically, you dedicate space to questions, writing down things you're unsure about, things you're curious about.
Okay.
Then another box for connections. How does this new stuff link to what you already know? And the last box, maybe the most interesting one, is for feelings and reactions.
Feelings.
In notes. Yeah. It makes the learning personal, taps into motivation, emotions, things that actually help anchor information in your long-term memory. It makes it stick.
That's really interesting. Okay, so we've actively captured and organized the info using something like window notes. What's the next step for processing it into something? Well, transferable. That brings us to tool number 2,
Yeah.
connecting the dots. They call it conceptualizing for transfer.
Right. And this gets right back to that challenge we talked about, seeing facts not just as things to memorize, but as the raw ingredients for figuring out a bigger idea. The strategy is called adding up the facts. Simple name, powerful process.
Adding up the facts. Okay, sounds straightforward. How does it work in practice? Like that pioneer example you mentioned.
Exactly. It's brilliant because it's so practical. You take these small, factual statements, your bricks, remember,
Right, the bricks.
and you consciously try to infer to figure out the larger concept they point to. So with the pioneers, fact 1, many died from disease. Fact 2, they often went hungry. Fact 3, the work was incredibly hard. Fact 4, they faced attacks, harsh weather.
Okay, a list of hardships.
Right, so you add up those separate, isolated facts. What's the conceptual conclusion? What's the bigger idea you've just earned by thinking about those facts? You infer something like, pioneers face many hardships in the settlement of the West. That's the insight. You made meaning.
Got it.
But here's the crucial step for transfer. To make that conclusion really powerful, you take that specific conclusion and you try to generalize it, make it less context-bound. So instead of just hardships in the settlement of the West, you broaden it, maybe something like, all pioneers face significant challenges and hardships when trying to establish something new.
Ah, okay.
See, now that generalization, that's something you can test and apply in totally different areas. Pioneers in science, pioneers in industry, pioneers trying to colonize Mars. You've unlocked an enduring understanding that travels.
That's powerful. Okay, final nugget, number 3. Comparing effectively. Comparison is obviously fundamental. We do it constantly.
All the time.
But the trap, as they point out, is getting bogged down in trivial details. You know, comparing two historical figures based on superficial stuff instead of their actual impact or ideas. You end up comparing things that just don't matter that much.
Exactly. You waste your cognitive energy on the shallow stuff. So the corrective strategy they offer is really disciplined. Describe first, compare second.
Describe first, compare second. What does that mean in practice?
It means you resist the urge to immediately jump to finding similarities and differences. That's often where you get caught up in the trivial. Instead, you force yourself to first develop a really deep, separate understanding of each item you want to compare. Describe item A thoroughly. Then describe item B thoroughly.
Okay, so you understand each one on its own first.
Precisely. And that descriptive stage, it forces you to identify what they call the salient dimensions, basically. The criteria or features that actually matter the most for your purpose before you even start looking across the two items for similarities and differences.
So by describing first, you kind of pre-select the important criteria, like focusing on impact or intent or consequences rather than just surface features.
Got it. It shifts comparison from just being a simple checklist exercise, this has X, that has Y, into a much more purposeful analytical tool. It ensures you're actually engaging the skill of comparing in a meaningful way.
Okay, these tools, window notes, adding up the facts, describe first, compare second, they seem really practical for anyone wanting to learn better.
They really are. So as we kind of wrap up this deep dive, the big goal is still the same, right? It's about shifting your own approach, moving away from just passively consuming knowledge to becoming someone who actively makes meaning. And we've seen that the path to that kind of lasting, enduring understanding really involves centering your learning on those big transferable ideas and deliberately practicing and using those 7 key thinking skills. That's how you get learning that actually sticks around.
And while the teacher's role is clearly changing, becoming more of that guide, the ultimate goal is for you, the learner, to build the capacity to use these strategies totally independently. That moment when you face a new challenge, a new situation you haven't seen before, and you can apply what you've learned without someone telling you how that's independence, that's what real learning, real transfer looks like.
Absolutely. And since we know that understanding has to be earned, right? It can't just be transmitted by someone telling you stuff. We want to leave you with a final thought, something to chew on today. Which single tool, maybe it's window notes, maybe adding up the facts, maybe describe first, compare second, which one will you commit to teaching yourself starting today?
Yeah, how will you start that shift from being just a knowledge consumer to becoming a master meaning maker? Go earn that understanding. That's all the time we have for this deep dive. We'll talk to you next time.